President Biden is facing mounting criticism over his decision to not increase refugee admissions to the United States. Now, the president on Friday did sign an executive order maintaining the 15,000 person cap on refugees, and that was set by a former Trump administration. Now, the number is far below the 62,000 that President Biden had previously set as a goal. And joining us now to discuss the political dynamics, the policy ramifications, and the humanitarian cost of this decision is Nazanin Ash. She's the Vice President for Public Policy and Advocacy at the International Rescue Committee. Nazanin, give us some context on Trump administration day one. In terms of refugees, what did President Trump do that is making it so difficult for Biden to address the problem now?
It's such a good question, Nayyera. You know, the Trump administration, among his very first executive orders, was a policy decision to dramatically reduce the number of refugees admitted from the 110,000 level set by the Obama administration to 50,000. And that was the first move out of the gate of what proceeded to be 4 years of direct attacks on the refugee admissions program, lowering the level of admissions every year until the historic low of 15,000 set by the Trump administration in its last fiscal year in office. That number represents an 85% decrease from the bipartisan 40-year average for this program. And to put it in context, over the course of the same period, the 4 years of the Trump administration, the number of refugees globally increased by 14 million. So as the refugee crisis was growing globally, the Trump administration reduced refugee admissions by a drastic 85% from its bipartisan average.
Nazanin, historically, though, since the program was reimagined in the 1980s, which was the Reagan era, refugee assistance has been something that's had received bipartisan support from Christians or apolitical, areligious people across the aisle. What made it so different now that refugees are considered to be part of the problem of immigration?
I actually think that there's a real political miscalculation there and a misunderstanding of refugee support among Americans. So, as you note, this is a long, it's a program with a long bipartisan history. President Reagan set the refugee admissions level at 140,000. You know, the highest admissions levels were set under, Republican and Democratic presidents. We've had years where we've admitted over 200,000. So this is, as you note, a long, proud bipartisan this program has a long, proud bipartisan legacy. And in fact, even over the course of the Trump years, when the Trump administration, using the bully pulpit of the president, really relentlessly attacked this program, support for the program only grew. So if you look at some of the most recent Pew polling numbers, support for refugees has risen to almost 75%. And that's driven by an 18% increase among Republicans. So Americans believe that the U.S. should be a place of refuge for those fleeing violence and persecution. They want to know that the process is orderly. They want to know that it's secure. They want to know that there's a pathway for successful integration of refugees when they arrive. And that's the refugee resettlement program we have.
Well, President Biden did say over the weekend that part of the challenge has been to rebuild these systems that were broken, not only in the Trump administration, but globally. What do you make, though, of the explanation that the Office of Refugee Resettlement was so busy dealing with the migrant crisis on the border that they just don't have the tools to be able to vet or bring people over, say, who are Syrian refugees?
Right. Look, these are programs that have operated side by side for many decades, and they're resourced through different funding streams. They have different staffs that support them. They have different domestic infrastructure. For the refugee admissions program, the U.S. government partners with private faith and community-based organizations across the country, over 300 of them, to support the reception and integration and path to citizenship for refugees. So the infrastructure for these two programs are quite different, and Congress appropriates the funds in different funding streams. So the capacity is there. It is the case that it's going to take time to rebuild capacity across the whole of our immigration system. But here, there's a real opportunity. And the way you rebuild rapidly and robustly is to set ambitious targets and release the resources to do it. So we, among the resettlement agencies and refugee advocacy groups, we're excited to partner with the Biden administration on the ambitious and inspiring goals that they've set. And we look forward to seeing a return to those ambitious targets.
Nazanin, thank you so much for reminding us that there is indeed an opportunity here as well, not just for the Biden administration, but for all of America. Kelly?